Hey viewers and viewers, my name is General Red Strategist and welcome back to So You're Being Hunted, episode 331 now. For a second I almost forgot the number, even though I'm actually recording this straight after the last one. So yeah, back for another podcast style episode here in the land of So You're Being Hunted. Previously, in the last episode, I had a bit of a nostalgic little chinwag about my old childhood house where I grew up, and about gardening and veg growing, things like that. So I was talking about my grandparents on my mother's side of the family, and talking a bit about the veg growing that my mother sometimes liked to do. My mother and father actually equally, because my dad likes to do a bit as well. Yeah, so I was talking a bit about that. That was a nice little conversation, that was. But that wasn't actually what I was intending to talk about. I was intending to talk a little bit about various things that I'd done perhaps over the summer whilst I was back up north. Maybe just other stuff in that regard. But yeah, I mean, obviously I mentioned that, we visited Clitheroe, stuff like that. We went out for a couple of walks and whatever else have you. But my old folks, whilst I was back up at their place, they showed actually a load of old books that I had from years back when I was living with them. And said, do you want to take any of your old books with you back down when you go back down south? So I thought, yeah, all right, sure, I'll do that. I'll be fine. I'll pick out a few of those. So, I mentioned, did I mention last episode that I got some new shelves in my lounge to try and fill out the space a bit? I think I did, didn't I? Yeah, I did, didn't I? It was in the, not the last episode, I think it was the episode before last, wasn't it? When I failed at the Wallace and Gromit challenge, I got shot. But yeah, because I mentioned I had a couple of shelves now in my lounge just to try and fill up some of the space a bit. Got my little DAB radio and all that. But yeah, I've started filling those up with a few of my old books, which is good. Things like that. Some of my Patrick O'Brien's. Patrick O'Brien, incidentally, is the author. I'm actually just looking at them right now, turning my head over my shoulder. Patrick O'Brien is the one who does the Aubrey Maturin series, the Captain Jack Aubrey in the Nelsonic Navy, early 1800s, and Dr. Stephen Maturin, those characters. There's a good couple of books. Obviously, they're written in a very old-fashioned style of prose, because obviously it's a historical setting. But, they're interesting. They're good books, and I quite enjoy them. I've read 3 of them so far. So I've read the first one, which is Master and Commander, which is what the film of the same name with Russell Crowe in it, I think. That's what that's based loosely off. So I read that one. Good book. I'm just trying to peer. What's the name of the second and third one? So Master and Commander was the first one. Hang on, I'm taking a look right now. Oh yeah, Post Captain, the second book, and then HMS Surprise. So I've read those 3, and I'm probably going to pick up more at some point. So they're good books, really nice, good read. Picked up some of my old H.G. Wells stuff that I got. My old copy actually of Herman Melville's Moby Dick, that's now down here. Obviously, I've got my Charles Dickens, which I'm actually reading at the moment. I'm actually currently reading Bleak House. I'm just over halfway through it. Good book. Jarndyce and all that. But yes, Dickens is an author who I picked up actually quite recently in the last year or so. So far of his, I've started out with Oliver Twist, read that. Then I read, David Copperfield. So I started with one that's relatively small, then went to one that's quite big. And now I'm reading another big one, Bleak House. And after that, I've got Great Expectations that needs reading. So I'll probably do that, which will be good. But other than those books, I also managed to get some of my old Stephen King novels and bring a few of those down. Now, I've read a fair few Stephen King books, actually, before. Obviously, I've read 2 of the bigger ones, like Carrie and The Shining. I've read those. Incidentally, never actually watched the movie adaptation of The Shining by Stanley Kubrick. Never watched it. Maybe I'll have to see if I can find it sometime. It's supposed to be good. But I've read those 2. I've read Doctor Sleep, which was the sequel that King did many years later to The Shining. So I've read that one. I've read From a Brick 8, Firestarter, what else? I've read the one, I forget the exact date, because the date is the title of the book. The one where there's the character who goes back in time to try and prevent the assassination of John F. Kennedy. I read that one. I'm just looking over my shoulder. What other ones did I read? Firestarter, Pet Sematary. I read that one. That's another one that's been adapted into a movie that I've never seen before. So Pet Sematary, I've read that one. What else? The Dead Zone. I've read that one. And I think I also read Dreamcatcher, I think it was. The one about the four guys who always go to the log cabin and then suddenly there's like aliens and things like that. And also, what's it called? Duma Key. Duma Key, interestingly, I think Stephen King wrote that, I think in the early 2000s, if I'm not mistaken. At least that was when it was published, I think. And it's not, I think, one of his most highly rated books. But I have to say, of all the books I've read, I don't know what it is about Duma Key, but I really like that one. So Duma Key, for anyone who doesn't know, is the Stephen King novel about a sort of middle-aged a middle-aged guy called Edgar Freemantle, who runs a building construction firm, a contractor basically. And one day he has a workplace accident, a really bad workplace accident, in which I think he's in like a pickup truck, which gets knocked into by a crane, mobile crane, and basically he almost gets crushed alive. And as a result of that, he loses his right arm. And so part of the book is about him, sort of his process of rehabilitation, coming to terms with the loss of his arm and the impact that it has on his life. So like his marriage breaks down because his mental state becomes really fragile and agitated, and he kind of loses his temper very quickly. And in order to kind of help him rehabilitate, the storyline is that his doctor recommends that maybe he takes a year to just go somewhere warm and just sort of isolate himself and just kind of take some time to kind of reflect on his life and just to take things slowly and calmly. And yeah, kind of like a rehabilitation basically. So this character Edgar Freemantle ultimately ends up going down to Florida, and he settles in this beach house called Salmon Point, but he calls it, in the story, the character calls it Big Pink. So he settles in this house on this island in the Florida Keys called Duma Key, and he meets interesting characters. He meets this 80-odd-year-old woman who lives in a hacienda further up the island. This 80-year-old woman who has Alzheimer's, and a caretaker and lawyer. And he meets various people, and whilst he's there on this island, living in this beach house, he takes up painting, but it quickly sort of becomes apparent as the story progresses that there is something supernatural going on this island, because he suddenly discovers that the loss of his arm somehow, when he's on this island, enables him to start doing things that he never thought he could do in terms of painting and drawing and things like this. And he starts producing these kind of almost a bit spooky kind of artworks, but apart from being spooky, they're really good. But of course, as the story progresses, of course, he starts to realise that there is something going on this island, and that the old lady with Alzheimer's, she sort of is connected to it. She sort of has memories which keep fading in and out thanks to her Alzheimer's, something that happened to her when she was younger. And so the story progresses, and like I say, it's not, Duma Key is not one of Stephen King's most well-known novels, or perhaps most kind of well-liked. It's a good novel, don't get me wrong, but compared to some of his more kind of classic works like The Shining or Carrie, I think it's probably not as highly rated. But I don't know, I personally like it. I just like the setting, and I just like some of the characters. Like, for example, obviously the old lady, Elizabeth Eastlake, Wireman, who's another key character in the story. I just like some of the characters, I like the setting, and overall I just thought it's an interesting premise. Yeah. Any other Stephen King fans out there? I don't know, have I talked about Stephen King before in my So You're Being Hunted series? I feel like maybe I have at some point, but if I have, I can't really remember. Oh man, that's the thing. There's probably going to be a point eventually in this So You're Being Hunted series where eventually I'm just going to start friggin' talking about things that I've already discussed before and just not remembering. And then the next time I speak to Phil via phone or whatever, he's probably going to be like, "Oh, fucking Andrew, you talked about that topic in episode 234.36. How could you not remember?" And I'll be like, "Fucking hell, it was so many years ago, Phil." Jeez. Good lord. Oh, man. God, that's quite a topic conversation, that is, yeah. I suppose actually that's a wider topic conversation. Let me know in the comments, ladies and gentlemen. What sort of authors are you into? What do you like? I mean, authors are things we've talked about here before, more generally, in the So You're Being Hunted series. You know, I think me and Phil actually, last time he was joining me for a So You're Being Hunted episode, which I think was that big one, where we just answered a load of generic questions. I think we talked about books then, didn't we? I seem to recall, at least. So, you know, let me know in the comments. What sort of books are you into? Oh yes, like I say, at the moment I'm reading Bleak House, Charles Dickens. Very good book. Again, lots of very interesting characters. Sorry, just sipping my tea whilst I'm at it. But of course, Bleak House, you know, about Esther Summerson. I have actually... Funny thing about Bleak House is, I do kind of already know what the general story of Bleak House is. I knew before I started reading it, because I had watched a BBC adaptation of it, which was a good BBC adaptation. A BBC adaptation starring Carey Mulligan in the role of Ada Clare. I'm sure there's obviously... Oh, and Charles Dance in the role of Mr. Tulkinghorn. So I'd watched that, so I had a general gist of how the story was and what it was about. But I thought, you know what? Watching TV adaptations, things like that, it's all well and good, but sometimes it doesn't beat reading the original source material, does it? So eventually I resolved I'm going to read Bleak House. I'm doing well with it so far, like I say, just over halfway. Pretty good. The tale of Esther Summerson and the Deadlocks and all these different characters. Jarndyce and Jarndyce, the old court case that's been going through the mill for years and years with no clear resolution in sight. I think Bleak House is probably one of Dickens's most famous works. I mean, then again, a lot of his works are all pretty famous, you know. Everyone knows Oliver Twist. If not from having read it, usually they know it. Oh god, gas came up my throat from my tea just then. You know, if they haven't read Oliver Twist, they've probably watched the old freaking musical from the bloody 60s or 70s or whenever it was made. You know the one. Oliver, Oliver, that one. Please, sir, can I have some more? That one. Obviously David Copperfield, that's also another of Dickens's biggest, most famous novels. Almost a bit semi-autobiographical in nature, if that's the right word. Because obviously he based a lot of what happened in David Copperfield on his own life, or things that had happened in his own life at least. Like David having to go to work in the blacking factory, things like that. But yes, you know, all of Dickens's novels are well known and pretty famous. Everyone's probably heard of them, whatever else have you. But yes, like I say, after Bleak House, got to move on to Great Expectations, and that'll be another one which technically I already know the story to it, because again I've seen a BBC adaptation of it for TV or film or whatever it was. But again, you know, like I say, just got to read that original source material, see how it is. You got to do that in order to get the full thing, the full experience, the full Magumbo, ladies and gentlemen. Right. Okay, looking at my clock, been recording for a good amount of time there, I do think, at least 15 or so minutes, so tell you what I'm going to do, I'm going to going to wrap this podcast style episode up, I do think. So, thank you for joining me then, ladies and gentlemen. We had a good discussion there about books, literature, Duma and Charles Dickens and whatever else have you, so hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, why not leave a like, eh, and comment, and subscribe, and all that jazz. Also, Facebook and Twitter links down below as usual, along with a link to my propagandist channel for anyone interested. But in the meantime, this is John Red signing off. Obviously, in the next episode, we'll probably be moving on to a challenge, so hope you'll look forward to that. Goodbye, everybody. Damn it, this inventory really is not good, is it? God, this is like... What? Ooh! Fucking hell! God, that scared the shit out of me! No, no, you fucking don't, you son of a bitch. You fucking sharky ass. Sharky ass? What? Shark... Ooh, no, no, you bitch. It's a tiger shark. Fuck you. God, that music. I knew something was wrong as soon as I heard the fucking music. Still doing it now. Go, oh my god. Better patch myself up. No, you fucker. You've got hold of me. What the hell? I'm somehow riding a shark. What is going on?